Andrew McCormack here with Bishop Don Bolen and Victim Services Advocate Pamela Walsh from the Regina Archdiocese. And how are you guys today?
Not too bad, thank you.
Good, thanks.
And now I understand that two of you met on a bit of a journey of healing. I was wondering if you could discuss how you came to know each other.
Pam, you start.
Okay, so I am a victim of childhood clergy sexual abuse. And when Don became the Archbishop, I had been dealing with the other Archbishop. I had a case, and so I had contacted Don a couple of times, and finally we met. And that first meeting, we had a conversation, and I asked him to walk with me, and we've kind of been doing that ever since, and working on this issue.
And now seems that you've been on, I guess, the other end. Now you're helping others who have been in the same shoes as you once were, I guess.
Right. Well, and my case is still evolving. We're getting to the point where it's hopefully going to be completed. But I walk with other victims, whether they want to come forward to the church or whether they just want to walk and have somebody accompany them through their process. It's very victim driven.
Pam has helped us to move as a diocese from a model that I think was defensive and was very difficult for anybody coming forward reporting sexual abuse by a member of the clergy, to a place where we try to welcome any victim, to support them, to accompany them, and to make the process as as least painful as possible. Often the process of coming forward for a victim of clergy sexual abuse is also re-traumatizing. So Pam has opened our eyes, I think, in the leadership here to the perspective of victims. So we've been involved in a variety of initiatives to really change the way we respond to cases, walk with victims, and steps we take to make the church as safe a place as possible for vulnerable people.
And I guess it's unfortunate that it's not anything too new that there are some recent allegations brought forward again with former Pope Benedict. But in what ways have you seen the diocese, either in Regina or talking about southern Saskatchewan, kind of come forward to look to be more open or have more safeguards against clerical abuse?
You first.
Okay. So we've actually undertaken, and we've met with every deanery in the diocese and given presentations to help them begin to understand what clergy sexual abuse does and the impact on a victim, and some of the initiatives that we've been doing to help them, at a local level, prayer services. Dawn has written several letters to victims, the position of victim services and advocacy that they can contact. And it's a difficult topic for everybody, but people are being receptive to it and open to it. And because this is such a different way of doing things, rather than the closed, we don't want to talk about this model, it's opening things up. And it's not an easy process, but we are making some headway. And Don, do you want to add to that?
Well, sure. I think one of the things we did was revise our policy for responding to concerns about the possibility of clergy sexual abuse, and had a victim input in the drafting of that policy. A section of the policy actually addresses victims directly to make it as accessible and non-threatening as possible. In addition to the educational events, a lot of writing has been done. Pam has written a number of articles, including an article that will be published soon on transparency and accountability from a victim's perspective. And we've hired a counselor so that somebody who is a victim of clergy sexual abuse and may not want to come forward to the diocese, or may have come forward, but anyway, can access counseling free. And that's been a big step. And again, it's been victims who have helped us to set that up. So in a number of ways, we're taking steps that I hope other places will be able to learn from. But the steps we're taking are entirely by virtue of listening to the wisdom and experience of victims to know what would actually help.
So there's also, I guess, an icon or an option on the website for people to click to report abuse.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's a confidential email or confidential phone number. So they don't have to phone the diocese and say, can I talk to the delegate? They're doing it directly. And that is huge for victims because you're taking out middle people. And everything we're doing is always with victim input. And not just mine, we talk with other victims to see what their mindsets are and what they think are need to be done. And that's very positive.
Are people still coming forward from either from years ago or more recent incidents?
Yes, I mean, there aren't a lot of people that are coming forward for sure, but often victims come forward 30, 40, 50 years after they've been abused. And Pam can certainly say more about it, but we need to be receptive and welcoming in those instances as well. But clearly today we're taking steps and encouraging the clergy to take steps towards accountability. And so much about the clergy sexual abuse in general has to do with the misuse of authority, the misuse of power. So we're doing a fair bit of work around the exercise of authority, which is a major concern of Jesus and his teaching. So it's a call to faithfulness to the gospel at the same time as listening to the wisdom of victims in this regard. Pam might say more about the challenge for victims to actually come forward.
Yeah, and I mean, I talk with a lot of victims that don't want to come forward; they just want to be heard. So quite often, Brad, who's the delegate, he might get calls where people just say, I want you to know I'm a victim and this happened here, but I don't want to go any further than that. It's really hard to come forward and open those wounds again, especially if it is 30, 40, 50 years later. And quite often it's a process that they have to because they can't live with it anymore. They have to tell someone. And being open, because before it was you come forward and people were really re-traumatized and re-victimized. And that is a hard process to go through. So sometimes it's just about wanting to know that somebody else knows that they're a victim. And for some people, that's enough because they don't want to go through the formal process or the court process because it's really hard.
Yeah, so I guess it really is on a case-by-case basis how
Yes.
how when people come forward, how it's handled.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
What's been the response from some others that have come forward, and whether they've received counseling or just been able to get something off their chest that's been weighing on them for decades, maybe?
For a lot of victims that I speak with, the fact of having a free trauma counselor that is accessed, privately or if they go through the diocese, has been huge because it's really expensive for somebody to go to a psychologist or a counselor, and a lot of people don't have those funds. So that's been positively received. Having people just being able to talk to somebody has been positively received. I've talked to victims that have come forward before and were treated really poorly. And the fact that they can now come and talk with somebody they feel it is really positive. So we are seeing positive steps and positive responses to this from victims.
Yeah. Is there any message that either Pam or Dawn you would have to somebody considering coming forward?
I guess my word would be, it takes courage, but we want you to know that you will not be judged. You will not be shamed. You will be welcomed. You will be heard and listened to and accompanied in this process.
Yeah. and that they're not alone, and that I'm here and I'm willing to support anyone, and I understand their pain and the torment that they're feeling in coming forward, and they don't have to feel the disgrace in coming forward, and they're not hurting anybody. They're not hurting the church by coming forward. They're actually helping, and ultimately that their well-being is what is at the forefront.
Yeah. Well, Pam and Don, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat about this topic here today.
Thanks very much.